Driverly.com, unlimited drama series.
Marriage is like drywall. You only notice the cracks when the paint starts peeling, and by then you're looking at a complete renovation or a total teardown. My name is Sam Rourke, and I'm a 40-year-old project manager who's spent the last 15 years thinking I had a solid foundation. Turns out I was living in a house of cards during a windstorm. It started with the little things. Robin, my wife of 16 years, suddenly became obsessed with her phone. Not just checking it, clutching it like a lifeline. She'd laugh at messages, then quickly flip it face down when I walked into the room. Her smile would vanish faster than free beer at a construction site. "Who was that?" I'd ask. "Just the girls," she'd say, but her eyes wouldn't meet mine. The girls. Casey Martinez and Morgan Webb, Robin's college friends who'd moved to our Connecticut suburb last year. They were the type of women who treated marriage like a competitive sport and husbands like participation trophies. I was folding laundry in our bedroom last Tuesday when I heard Robin on the phone downstairs. Her voice carried that particular tone, the one she used when she thought she was being clever. "I know, right? Julian's new tool is supposed to be amazing for drilling," she said, followed by that laugh. Not her real laugh, the one I fell in love with. This was different, sharper, meaner. "Training husbands is so much work," she continued, "but someone has to teach them their place." I dropped the towel I was holding. Julian Grant, the real estate hotshot who'd been showing up at every neighborhood barbecue, every school fundraiser, every place my wife happened to be. 41 years old, divorced, with the kind of practiced charm that made women giggle and men want to check their wallets. That night at dinner, the tension was thick enough to cut with a butter knife. Our daughters, 13-year-old Tessa and 7-year-old Mia, sat between us like referees at a boxing match. "Dad, can you pass the salt?" Tessa asked. Robin intercepted it before I could reach across the table. "Here, honey. Your father's busy staring into space." "Why are you always mad at Dad?" Mia asked, her big brown eyes, my eyes, looking confused. "I'm not mad, sweetheart. Daddy just needs to pay better attention sometimes." I bit back my first 3 responses. Maybe she's allergic to honesty, I thought. Or maybe she's practicing for her next performance. "Sorry, girls," I said instead. "Work's been crazy. Big project coming up." Robin's fork clinked against her plate. "Speaking of which, Casey invited us to her lake house this weekend. Family weekend. One last fun trip before you disappear into your project." The way she said it made my skin crawl, like she was reading from a script. "Sounds great," I lied. That night, after the girls were asleep, I found Robin's gym bag in the laundry room. I wasn't snooping, just grabbing dirty clothes. But there it was, tucked under her yoga pants. A phone I'd never seen before. The screen lit up with a text notification. "Can't wait to see you drip tonight. Jay." My hands shook as I read it. Then I took pictures with my own phone and slipped the burner back where I found it. I sat in my truck in the driveway for an hour, staring at those pictures. 16 years of marriage. 2 beautiful daughters. A house we'd built together, literally. I'd done most of the work myself. All of it crumbling because my wife was getting her kicks with some smooth-talking real estate shark. But here's the thing about being a project manager. You learn to think 3 steps ahead. You plan for problems before they happen. And you always have a backup plan. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a contact I hadn't called in 2 years. Vince Morrison, ex-cop turned private security consultant. We'd worked together on a mall renovation, and he'd helped me out of a sticky situation with some union troublemakers. "Vince, it's Sam Rourke. I need a favor." Casey's lake house sat on the shore, like a monument to bad taste. All glass and sharp angles, the kind of place that screamed, "I have money and want everyone to know it." The perfect setting for what Robin had planned. We arrived Friday evening, the girls excited about the weekend. Me playing the role of oblivious husband. Robin's friends were already there, drinks in hand, treating the place like their personal kingdom. "Sam," Casey squealed, air kissing me like we were best friends. "So glad you could make it. Julian's coming by later. He's got some great stories about the housing market." "I'll bet he does." Morgan was sprawled on the leather sectional, phone in hand as always. "Robin, you have to see this post about husband obedience school. It's hilarious." "I failed out of that program," I said, settling into a chair. "Couldn't pass the bootlicking module." The women exchanged glances. Robin's smile looked painted on. Saturday was a masterclass in psychological warfare. The three of them spoke in code, making jokes about training and discipline, while shooting meaningful looks at each other. The girls sensed something was off. Tessa kept rolling her eyes, and Mia stuck close to me. Julian showed up around 4, all white teeth and expensive cologne. He shook my hand like we were old buddies, but his eyes were already finding Robin. Sam, great to see you, man. How's the construction business? Project management, I corrected. And it's good. Keeps me busy. Keeps me sharp. Something flickered in his expression. Good. Let him wonder what I meant by that. The storm rolled in after dinner. Fat drops of rain pelted the windows while we sat around the fireplace. The women were on their 3rd bottle of wine, getting louder and bolder with their comments. You know what Sam needs? Casey said, gesturing with her glass. A good lesson in appreciation. Some men just don't learn unless you really drive the point home, Morgan added. Robin stood up suddenly, swaying slightly. Speaking of lessons, girls, I think it's time for our little demonstration. My blood turned to ice water, but I kept my expression neutral. Demonstration. Get your jacket, Sam. We're going for a ride. The girls looked confused as everyone piled into Casey's SUV. I was relegated to the back row, pressed between luggage and camping gear. Julian rode shotgun, his hand casually resting on Robin's shoulder as she sat behind Casey. 10 minutes down a dark country road, Casey pulled over. Everyone out except Sam, Robin announced. What's going on? Tessa demanded. Just a little adult conversation, honey, Robin said, but her voice had gone cold. Sam, get out. I stepped into the rain and immediately felt the weight of what was happening. This wasn't spontaneous. This was planned. You need a lesson, Robin said, her face lit by the SUV's interior lights. About respect. About knowing your place. Casey leaned out the driver's window. Maybe a nice walk will clear your head. It's only 87 miles home. Mom, what are you doing? Tessa's voice was sharp with panic. Get back in the car, Mia cried, pressing her face against the window. But Robin was already closing the door. Julian gave me a little wave as they drove off, taillights disappearing into the storm. I stood there for exactly 30 seconds, rain soaking through my jacket, watching my daughter's faces fade into the darkness. Then I pulled out my phone. Ray, it's Sam. I'm ready for pickup. Headlights appeared almost immediately. A black Ford F-150 pulled up, and Ray Castellanos stepped out, 6 feet of quiet competence wrapped in a waterproof jacket. Evening, boss, he said, opening the passenger door. How'd it go? Like clockwork. I climbed into the warm cab, water dripping onto the leather seats. They bought the whole helpless husband act. Ray had been my ace in the hole since I'd called Vince. Ex-military, ex-security contractor, currently between jobs and happy to help out for the right price. 3 years ago, I'd hired his company to provide security during a difficult renovation project. When his daughter needed emergency surgery, I'd quietly made sure his insurance covered everything and his job stayed open. Some debts aren't about money. Vince is standing by, Ray said, pulling back onto the road. You sure about this? I thought about Robin's laugh, about Julian's smug wave, about my daughter's faces pressed against that window. I'm sure. Text him. Plan B is a go. The rain hammered the windshield as we drove through the night, but for the first time in months, I felt like I could see clearly. I walked into my house at 2:17 a.m., soaking wet and ready for the performance of my life. Robin was waiting in the kitchen, pacing like a caged animal. The girls were presumably asleep upstairs. I could hear the dishwasher running, which meant she'd been stress cleaning. Sam, oh my God, where have you been? We came back and you were gone, and car broke down about 20 miles out, I said, stripping off my wet jacket. Lucky for me, old friend was driving by, gave me a lift. Her eyes... narrowed. What friend? Guy from work. You don't know him. I headed for the stairs. I need dry clothes. Long night. I was worried sick, she called after me, but her voice sounded more angry than relieved. I'll bet you were. The next morning, I started phase 1 of what Vince called evidence collection. While Robin was at her yoga class, or wherever she actually went, I installed a comprehensive home security system. All legal, all in common areas, all designed to protect my family's safety and security. This is some serious hardware, Vince said, mounting a camera in the living room. Motion activation, cloud storage, smartphone alerts. Very thorough. I believe in being prepared. Vince had aged well since leaving the force. 53 years old, gray at the temples, with the kind of steady presence that made people trust him instinctively. He'd been a detective for 20 years, before opening his security consulting business. You know this is going to get messy, he said. It's already messy. I'm just cleaning it up. That afternoon, I started surveillance. Not stalking, I'm not a psychopath. Just documenting patterns. Robin's schedule, her meetings, her favorite coffee shop, Julian's real estate office, his usual lunch spots, his ridiculously expensive Tesla. Ray handled the technical side, staying invisible while gathering information. Amazing how much people reveal when they think no one's watching. By Wednesday, we had a clear picture. Robin and Julian met every Tuesday and Thursday at the Riverside Cafe, a little place downtown where they thought they were being discreet. They'd sit in the back corner, heads close together, hands touching across the table. But the real gold mine was Thursday evening. I was reviewing security footage from our living room camera when I heard Robin's voice, crystal clear. The lake house thing worked perfectly. He was so pathetic, standing there in the rain. Casey's laugh was like fingernails on a chalkboard. I wish I'd gotten video. Julian, you should have seen his face. Poor bastard probably walked half the night, Julian said. Maybe now he'll understand how things work. The best part, Morgan chimed in, is he can't prove anything. It's our word against his. I saved the file and sent copies to 3 different cloud accounts. Trust the process, I told Tessa that night when she asked why Mom had been so weird lately. What process? Sometimes when people make bad choices, they have to learn from the consequences. It takes time, but eventually everything works out. She studied my face with those sharp 13-year-old eyes. Are you and Mom getting divorced? I don't know yet, sweetheart. But whatever happens, you and Mia are my priority. Always. Friday evening, I made my first move. Robin was getting ready for another girls' night out. Hair, makeup, the works. She looked beautiful, and for a moment, I remembered why I'd fallen in love with her. Then, she grabbed the burner phone. Have fun tonight, I said from the doorway. She jumped, nearly dropping the phone. Jesus, Sam, you scared me. Sorry. Just wanted to say I hope you enjoy yourself. You deserve to have exactly what's coming to you. Her eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just that actions have consequences. Good ones and bad ones. She stared at me for a long moment, then grabbed her purse. I'll be late. I'm sure you will. After she left, I opened my laptop and started transferring money. Not stealing. Everything I moved was legally mine or went into trust accounts for the girls. But if Robin thought she was going to clean me out in a divorce, she had another thing coming. My phone buzzed with a text from Ray. Package delivered. I smiled and poured myself a beer. Phase 2 was about to begin. The Riverside Community Foundation's annual gala was Julian Grant's baby, his chance to play the big-shot philanthropist in front of the whole town. 200 people in formal wear, drinking wine and writing checks for local charities. Robin had insisted we attend together, playing the happy couple for appearances. She looked stunning in a black cocktail dress. Her arm linked through mine as we worked the room. There's Julian, she said, waving at the man of the hour. We should say hello. Absolutely, I've been looking forward to talking with him all week. Julian was holding court near the silent auction, his presentation set up visible on the stage behind him. In 20 minutes, he'd be giving his big speech about community investment and building stronger neighborhoods. Sam, Robin, so glad you could make it, he said, shaking my hand with that practiced grip. Robin, you look absolutely radiant. Thank you, Julian. Sam was just saying how excited he is to hear your presentation. Really? Well, I think you'll find it very Illuminating? I'm sure I will. Vince appeared at my elbow, dressed in a server's uniform and carrying a tray of champagne. Excuse me, sir, would you care for a drink? Thank you, I said, taking a glass. Our eyes met briefly, and he gave the slightest nod. The switch had been made. At 8 o'clock sharp, Julian took the stage. The lights dimmed and his presentation began. The first few slides were standard corporate stuff. Charts, graphs, community impact statistics. Then slide 5 appeared, and the room went dead silent. Instead of housing development plans, the screen showed a photo of Robin and Julian at the Riverside Cafe, her hand covering his across the table. The timestamp showed it was taken 2 days ago, during her lunch meeting with clients. Slide 6 was even better, a screenshot of text messages. Julian's phone number was clearly visible, along with several messages that would make a sailor blush. What the hell? Julian fumbled with his laptop, but the presentation kept advancing. Slide 7. Robin leaving Julian.
2 key cards. You asked for 2. Who was the second 4?
My colleague needed a place.
Your colleague who calls you baby in her texts?
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
Julian's condo at 6:30 a.m. last Tuesday, still wearing yesterday's clothes. The murmur in the crowd grew louder. I spotted Robin's boss, Margaret Chen, in the front row, her face a mask of professional horror. Technical difficulties, Julian announced, sweat beading on his forehead. But slide 8 was already loading. Audio from my home security system, Robin's voice crystal clear as she talked about training husbands and leaving me standing in the rain like a pathetic dog. That's when Robin bolted for the stage, but Ray was already there, dressed as event security, politely but firmly blocking her path. I walked calmly to the microphone as Julian fled the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, my voice carrying clearly through the sound system. I'd like to thank my wife Robin for her dedication to local real estate development. Her hands-on approach and personal attention to detail have been truly inspiring. The room erupted. Some people were laughing, others looked shocked, and more than a few were already pulling out their phones to record. I'd also like to thank Julian Grant for his commitment to building stronger relationships in our community. His drilling techniques are apparently quite popular with the ladies. Margaret Chen was already heading for the exit, her phone pressed to her ear. Robin's career in corporate HR was about to become very complicated. I handed the microphone back to the stunned event coordinator and walked out, leaving chaos in my wake. The parking garage confrontation happened 15 minutes later. I was walking to my truck when Julian appeared from behind a concrete pillar, his face twisted with rage. "You son of a bitch," he snarled. "Do you have any idea what you just did? I shared some community building photos. Isn't that what tonight was about? Bringing people together?" He grabbed my shirt, shoving me against my truck. "You think you're clever? You think this is over? Actually, I think it's just getting started." That's when Ray materialized from the shadows, moving with that quiet competence that made smart people very nervous. "Problem here, boss?" Julian's grip loosened. "Julian's? Who the hell are you?" "I'm the guy who's going to suggest you take your hands off my friend." Julian let go, but his face was still flushed with anger. "This isn't over, Sam. You have no idea who you're messing with." "Funny thing about that," I said, pulling out my phone. "I've been doing my research." I showed him the screen, a detailed report on his business practices, including several questionable deals and at least 2 potential ethics violations. Amazing what you can find in public records when you know where to look. His face went pale. "Now, about your car," I continued. "Ray, would you mind helping Mr. Grant with his tire pressure?" Ray produced a small tool and methodically let the air out of all 4 tires on Julian's Tesla, while I used my keys to carve "Home Wrecker" into the hood. "You can't do this," Julian protested, but he made no move to stop us. "Actually, I can. See, this is a private parking garage, and you just committed assault. I'm well within my rights to defend myself and my property." Ray finished with the tires and started filming with his phone. "Smile, Mr. Grant. This is going on the community Facebook page." Julian looked around desperately, but the garage was empty except for us. "You're both crazy." "No," I said, getting into my truck. "I'm just a guy who's tired of being taken advantage of." Have a nice walk home. We drove off, leaving him standing next to his crippled Tesla, probably wondering how his perfect plan had gone so wrong. Think he'll call the police? Ray asked. I hope so. I've got security footage of him assaulting me, and his fingerprints are all over my shirt. My phone was buzzing with notifications, texts, calls, social media alerts. The gala video was already spreading through town like wildfire. Robin was waiting when I got home, pacing the living room like a caged animal. How could you do this to me? She screamed. How could you humiliate me like that? I didn't do anything to you, I said calmly. I just showed people what you've been doing to me. Those photos were private. You were in public places. Nothing private about cheating on your husband at the local cafe. I want you out of this house. Tonight. That's not how this works, Robin. This is my house too. These are my daughters. And you're the one who's been lying. She grabbed her phone, probably to call Julian, but stopped when she saw the screen. Her face went white. What is it? I asked, though I already knew. I've been suspended from work, pending investigation. That's unfortunate. Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to have an affair with a client's husband. The irony was perfect. Julian had been working with Margaret Chen on a commercial real estate deal. Robin's relationship with him was a massive conflict of interest, not to mention a violation of company policy. This is your fault, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. No, Robin. This is your choice. You chose to cheat. You chose to humiliate me. You chose to abandon me on a dark road in the middle of a storm. I'm just making sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. She ran upstairs, slamming the bedroom door behind her. I poured myself a drink and sat in my favorite chair, listening to the house settle around me. Upstairs, I could hear Robin on the phone, probably trying to do damage control. Too late for that. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in social warfare. Robin's suspension became permanent termination when the full scope of her relationship with Julian came to light. Turns out, mixing business with pleasure while violating company ethics policies is a career-limiting move. Julian's real estate empire started crumbling when his other questionable deals came under scrutiny. Amazing how quickly pillar of the community becomes person of interest when people start paying attention. But the real turning point came when Robin tried to take the girls. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was at the job site when Lex Martinez, Casey's younger cousin, called me. Sam, you need to get home, now. What's wrong? Robin's loading suitcases into her car. She's got Tessa and Mia with her, and they don't look happy about it. Lex had been the wild card in this whole mess. Unlike Casey and Morgan, she'd never liked Robin's crowd. Too fake, she'd told me once. Too cruel. When the gala scandal broke, she'd been the first to publicly support me. I'm 10 minutes away, I said, already running for my truck. I'll keep watching. And Sam, I'm recording everything. I called Ray as I drove. Emergency pickup. Robin's trying to take the girls. On my way. I arrived to find Robin shoving the last suitcase into her BMW, while Tessa and Mia stood on the sidewalk looking confused and scared. Going somewhere? I asked. We're taking a little vacation, Robin said, not meeting my eyes. The girls need to get away from all this drama. What drama? You mean the drama you created? Daddy, I don't want to go, Mia said, running to hug my legs. I want to stay home. Mom says we have to, Tessa added, but her voice was defiant. She says you're dangerous now. Dangerous? I knelt down to their level. Girls, have I ever hurt you? Have I ever done anything to make you scared of me? No, Mia said immediately. Never, Tessa agreed. Robin's face flushed red. Get in the car. Now. No, Tessa said. I'm staying with Dad. You don't have a choice. Actually, she does. Ray's truck pulled up, and he stepped out with a folder in his hand. Mrs. Rourke, I have something for you. The custody papers were perfectly legal and thoroughly documented. Photos of the lake house abandonment, audio of Robin's cruel laughter, testimony from Lex about the attempted kidnapping. You can't do this, Robin said, but her voice was shaking. I already did. Emergency custody hearing is tomorrow morning. Until then, the girls stay with me. Julian's Mercedes pulled up just as the police arrived, called by Lex, who'd filmed the entire confrontation and posted it live on Facebook. What seems to be the problem here? Officer Davis asked. My wife was attempting to take our children without my consent, I said, handing him copies of the custody papers. I have reason to believe she was planning to leave the state, Julian got out of his car, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Robin, what's going on? Your boyfriend here was helping my wife kidnap our daughters, I said. But don't worry, it's all on video. Officer Davis looked at the papers, then at Robin's packed car, then at the crowd of neighbors who'd gathered to watch the show. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to unpack those bags. Sir, he said to Julian, I suggest you leave. Now. This isn't over, Julian muttered as he got back in his car. You're right, I called after him. It's just getting started. That night, Tessa helped me make dinner while Mia colored at the kitchen table. Robin had locked herself in the guest room, probably calling lawyers, and trying to figure out how her perfect plan had fallen apart. Dad, Tessa said, stirring the pasta sauce, are you going to divorce Mom? Probably, sweetheart, I'm sorry. Don't be. She's been mean to you for months. We noticed. Out of the mouths of babes. Whatever happens, I said, you and Mia are the most important things in my life. That will never change. She smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her in weeks. I know, Dad, and we're proud of you for standing up to her. My phone buzzed with a text from Vince. Custody hearing moved up to tomorrow at 9 a.m. Judge reviewed the evidence. You're going to win. I looked around my kitchen, my daughter safe and happy, dinner cooking on the stove, the sound of normal family life filling the air. For the first time in months, I felt like I was home. The custody hearing was a formality. Judge Patricia Williams took one look at the evidence, the abandonment video, the audio recordings, the attempted kidnapping, and awarded me temporary full custody with supervised visitation for Robin. Mrs. Rourke, the judge said, your behavior has been reckless and potentially harmful to your children. Until you can demonstrate that you've addressed these issues, your contact with your daughters will be limited and supervised. Robin's lawyer, a nervous young man who'd clearly taken the case for the money, tried to object, but the evidence was overwhelming. Julian wasn't even there. Word around town was that his real estate license was under review, and his ex-wife was coming after him for back alimony. Funny how quickly a man's priorities change when his own world starts crumbling. But Robin wasn't done fighting. 2 weeks later, on a Thursday night in late August, she made her last, desperate play. I was upstairs helping Mia with her reading when the motion sensors triggered. Ray was in the kitchen making coffee after another long day of helping me document Robin's increasingly erratic behavior. Boss, he called softly, we've got company. I checked the security app on my phone. 2 figures were creeping around the backyard, Robin and Julian dressed in dark clothes, carrying what looked like spray paint cans and a crowbar. They're going to try to break in, I said, probably plant evidence to make me look unstable. Want me to call the police? Not yet. Let's give them enough rope to hang themselves. I activated the live stream feature, broadcasting directly to Facebook. Within minutes, dozens of neighbors were watching as Robin and Julian tried to break into my house. The motion sensor sprinklers kicked in first, soaking them both. Then the tripwires I'd installed triggered the flower bombs. Theatrical, harmless, but absolutely humiliating. Julian slipped in the mud, landing face first in a puddle. Robin tried to run but got tangled in the garden hose, falling backward into the flower bed. The whole thing was being broadcast live to half the neighborhood. Should we help them? Ray asked, grinning. They look like they were having fun. Robin managed to get to her feet, covered in flour and mud, mascara running down her face. She looked directly into one of the cameras and screamed, "This is harassment! I'm calling the police!" Please do, I said, speaking into my phone so the live stream could hear me. I'm sure they'll be very interested in your breaking and entering charges. That's when the police arrived, called by Robin herself, who somehow thought she could spin this as my fault. Officer Davis stepped out of his patrol car, took one look at the scene and shook his head. Mrs. Rourke, we've talked about this. He set traps, Robin shrieked. He tried to hurt us. Ma'am, you're on his property at night, carrying tools that could be used for vandalism. The homeowner has every right to protect his family. Julian was trying to slink away, but Ray blocked his path. Going somewhere, Mr. Grant? I wasn't doing anything wrong. Really? Because it looks like you were about to vandalize this man's house, on camera, while dozens of people watched. By now, half the neighborhood had gathered on their lawns to watch the show. Mrs. Peterson from next door was recording with her phone. The teenage kids across the street were live tweeting the whole thing. Robin looked around at the crowd. Neighbors who used to be friends, now watching her public humiliation with a mixture of disgust and entertainment. "This isn't over," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Actually," Officer Davis said, pulling out his handcuffs, "I think it is. You're both under arrest for attempted breaking and entering." As they led Robin and Julian away in handcuffs, I stood on my front porch with my daughters, watching the storm clouds gather overhead. "Dad," Tessa said, "is it really over?" "Yeah, sweetheart, it's over." The first drops of rain began to fall as the police cars disappeared down the street. Robin was gone, not just from my house, but from my life. The divorce would be finalized within a month, her parental rights reduced to supervised visits that she'd probably never use. Julian's real estate empire had collapsed completely. His license was revoked, his assets frozen, his reputation destroyed. Last I heard, he was working at a car dealership in Hartford, trying to rebuild his life from scratch. Casey and Morgan had disappeared from the social scene entirely, their own marriages suffering from their association with the scandal. Lex had become something of a local hero for standing up to them. As for me, I got my daughters, my house, and my self-respect back. The project I'd been working on was completed ahead of schedule and under budget, leading to 3 new contracts and the best year my company had ever had. But the best part was standing on that porch, watching the rain fall, knowing that my girls were safe and happy and home where they belonged. "Let's hope the next storm blows her even farther away," I said, putting my arms around Tessa and Mia. Thunder rumbled overhead, but inside my house, my real house, built on honesty and love instead of lies and manipulation, everything was warm and bright and exactly as it should be. The storm had broken, and I was still standing.